I've always been bothered by the way that people talk about their personal records or their best lifts. So people will peak to hit a new PR and then be really proud of it, and rightfully so. Hitting a new personal record, lifting the heaviest weight you've ever lifted is sick and it feels amazing. But then it kinda inflates their perception of their own strength. When people ask me, bro, how much do you lift? I have this tendency to respond with my max peaked performance, and I imagine you do too. Today I'm going to explain why I don't think this is the most useful or honest measure we can use as everyday athletes, and how we can really test our strength in a way that's meaningful to us rather than to some third party. So if you'll walk with me, fellas, I will illustrate this through my recent no practice PR in the barbell strict press. So the week started out pretty much like any other. I did a normal week of training at here in the home gym, but then I took a red-eye flight to Thailand to meet my wife for a holiday. And the hotel we were staying at had an amazing gym, and I was super stoked on using all of this equipment that I don't normally have access to at my own home gym, so I ended up working out 5 days straight at the hotel gym because I was just so stoked. So to set the stage for this workout, I had done over a week of training with no rest days, I had had a night of terrible sleep on the plane, and I was jet lagged. But I went to the gym and they had some nice barbells and racks, so I decided to do some overhead press. During the warm-up, the weights were flying, so I decided to load up 70 kilos, which would be a 2 kilo PR. And not just a 2 kilo PR, but a PR that had stood for 10 months. And then 7 months ago, I spent 3 weeks peaking to try to hit 70 kilos, and I failed it. And then 2 weeks later, I failed it again. So I already had bad blood with this weight, so I decided for the next 7 months to put the barbell strict press on hold and focus on other overhead pressing. Now fast forward to today, I'm jet lagged, fatigued, not fully recovered, and 70 just flies. I was able to really control the negative as well, and honestly, it was one of the best overhead presses I've ever done. Unfortunately, the gym didn't have any change plans to bump it up by 1 or 2 kilos and attempt a new PR, but I was able to drop the weight down to 63 kilos to attempt a 2 rep max, and I hit it for 4 reps. And honestly, it felt fucking sick. I felt really strong and was just delighted to get this sort of unexpected bonus PR, because even though my technique wasn't dialed and I wasn't properly rested, I had simply, undeniably developed more horsepower in the intervening 7 months. And that, to me, honestly, is what it's all about, this lifting journey that we're on here. I want to train to make the type of gains that transcend one arbitrary exercise. It's about being stronger than anything life throws at you without having to master a specific technique. Now let's compare this to another recent PR I set. Back in February, I hit a 150 kilo Zercher squat, which for me was a massive PB, never having squatted more than 130 kilos in my life. And so if you ask me, John, how much do you squat? Well, I'm gonna say 150 kilos. But is that really being completely honest? I don't think I'd be able to reproduce it this week, because there's a big difference what you can do peaked and well rested and well practiced on a movement versus what you can do on some random Tuesday. Even though I probably have the leg strength, I think my cumulative fatigue is going to be too high, and I just don't have enough practice with heavy singles to execute that strength right now. And unfortunately, I think a large portion of the process of peaking is developing the skill of the art of peaking, not actually strength itself, although strength, of course, is a part of it. Now, to be clear, peaked 1 rep maxes are cool, right? Obviously, they have their place in comparing one strength athlete to another in the domain of sport. We want to know who is able to lift the most on the day. And obviously, athletes are going to schedule their training in order to maximize their performance on that day. But for everyday athletes like you and me, who just want to improve ourselves and aren't really competing against anyone, I think it's a bit overrated. So the question becomes, what is a good measure of strength? How strong can I be on some random Tuesday without having to reorganize my entire life in order to make it happen? Without planning several months in advance in order to be strong on the specific day? Well, an excellent way to answer that question is to just pick a lift that you've done before that's meaningful to you, but that hasn't been in your program for the last couple months. Without taking several sessions to practice the movement, without taking a deload to be fresh for it, just try to work up to a new max. This could be a 1 rep max or a rep max, and see if you've gotten stronger in the overall movement pattern. If you can manage a new personal best anywhere from a 1 rep max to a 10 rep max, this is a huge signal that the training that you've been doing is paying off and that you've developed some sort of qualities, whether muscular strength or neurological strength. You've developed some sort of strength quality that transcends that one single exercise. If you're able to output more force in a movement pattern that's a bit rusty, well, you got stronger. And now you have a better measure of how strong you really are on short notice. I also think there's a deeper reason that these no practice PRs are so satisfying. Personally, my goals for training, that is to say, the goals that keep me motivated for the long term to train, to move, and improve myself, they're not really about hitting some arbitrary number in some arbitrary lift and then ticking that off. For me, training is much more about just being generally stronger. And now you may say, John, that's way too vague. You need to have specific SMART goals that are quantifiable. I do think there's a place for having numbers that you want to hit on a weekly or monthly basis in order to track your progress. But honestly, I think these are more of a means to an end. It's not the numbers themselves that motivate me, but it's the feeling that comes with those numbers. I just want to feel strong. And that's not really a quantifiable thing, right? I feel strong when I overhead press 70 kilos because it's the most I've ever done. But someone who's overhead pressed twice that would not feel strong at all when performing that way. So it's not the absolute load or the absolute number that's actually important. It's the way it makes us feel. There's some sort of quality of body and mind that comes from training our bodies and developing ourselves. And that is the je ne sais quoi that we're looking for. At the end of the day, some arbitrary number that I have to reorganize my life in order to hit isn't super meaningful. So making these unexpected, unplanned, unpracticed PRs are a way to just feel strong as hell and bring the fun back into training. So how can you do this yourself? Well, it's not rocket science. Just pick a lift that you care about, but that you haven't practiced a lot lately. Take some time to warm up, and if things are feeling good, attempt a new max or rep max. And obviously, it goes without saying, if you have been completely neglecting the relevant muscle groups and movement pattern, you probably won't have gotten stronger magically. Though I wasn't practicing the barbell overhead press at all during that time, I was doing a lot of one-arm dumbbell pressing and a lot of weighted dips. So the relevant muscles and tissues and capacities were getting stronger and getting more proficient. Ultimately, I probably just needed more meat on my shoulders and to get stronger at basically any pressing movement. Thank you for watching, folks. I hope this motivates you to keep training hard for the long term. Like this if you like this, and I hope you have a strong day. Peace.